I am playing a game of Warhammer 40,000 tomorrow. I'm going to be playing with my Custodian Guard versus my friend's Chaos Space Marine army. And I realized this morning that I'm one model short of having my army painted, and that is a Telemon Dreadnought. I also realized that I painted up all my other Custodes pretty much on my live streams, so I missed out on making videos for a bunch of them. So I thought I'd kill two birds with one stone and paint up a Telmon Dreadnought in today's video in very simple, very easy, very accessible way, and hopefully achieving an awesome result. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to seeing how he turns out. Before we get into the video, as usual, I must thank all of my active patrons and channel members. Without you guys, like I always say, I could not continue doing this. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. If you're interested in getting involved with that, supporting the channel, helping us to grow to new heights, check out the links down below, see which tier suits you, and jump in. You get access to a private Discord server. You can talk to me on a daily basis about your hobby. We do a bunch of challenges and stuff there, and you get access to an extra video every single week just for you guys. So those are just two of the awesome benefits of being involved. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in and get this Telmon Dreadnought painted. So this is my second Telmon Dreadnought and the one that I'm going to be painting for you in today's video. As you see, I very cautiously dropped him there, but that's fine. He is an absolute beast of a machine, and his lore and background is something that really inspires me as well. Particular one point, which we'll get to in a moment. So I'm going to show you a very quick and very easy way to paint Custodes. I've shown a couple of ways of painting Custodes on my channel before. People really like those videos. It's one of the easiest armies to paint in 40k. Where it currently is now, I sprayed the model black and then I sprayed it with Retributor Armor Gold to begin the process. You can, of course, and if you don't have access to a can of Retributor Armor Gold, you can just dry brush on and work a heavy dry brush of Retributor Armor Gold to get you started, like an overbrush. But I do say, if you are going to be buying something like a Custodes army or a Stormcast Eternals army that they're going to be base color gold, you're going to save yourself a hell of a lot of time by just buying a can of gold spray. I know it's expensive, but I think it's worth it for the amount of time you save. Next, we throw Reikland Flesh Shade across the entire chassis, head to toe, to shade down this gold and make it the color that I really like to start with when it comes to these awesome models. Now, let's very quickly talk about what a Telemon Heavy Dreadnought is. So, a Telemon Heavy Dreadnought was a rare Dreadnought variant utilized exclusively by the Legio Custodes during the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy eras. They are still deployed by the forces of the Adeptus Custodes in the 41st millennium. So these things are still stomping around battlefield. Now, I have yet to hear of them actually leaving Terra. Obviously, the 10,000 Custodes that are stationed on Terra, when Robute Guilliman returned to lead the Imperium, the Custodes finally decided to start leaving in numbers and participating in the wars and fighting. I don't know whether any of the Telemon have done that yet. If anybody does know that, please do let me know in the comments with their sources and stuff, because I would really like to know that. So, fewer than a handful of Telemon Dreadnoughts were to be found within the ranks of the Legio Custodes, each intended to stand sentinel over its charge, no matter the force brought against it. So this thing was really meant to stand there and just take on armies of combatants by itself. And now one of my personal favorite little tidbits that comes with the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought is this particular piece of information. In part, this rarity was due to the cost in labor and resources for the creation of such a superlative engine of war. For each bore, at least one plate worked by the Emperor's own hand, and also the rarity of appropriate custodian candidates to control them. So this kind of thing in my head, it kind of rattles around like the Emperor obviously created the original designs for things like normal standard dreadnoughts and space marines and stuff like that, but his brain had to, of course, think about the logistics of creating armies worth of them. But I think when it came to the Custodes, he just told himself, well, what could I do? If I didn't care about the resource cost, if I didn't care about time it took to create, if I really just pushed it all in on something ridiculous, what would that be? And then he created the Custodes. Like a Telemon Dreadnought is the epitome of a dread. There is no Dreadnought stomping the wars that even comes close to this awesome weapon of war. Okay, now, who goes into them? So, the honor of interment into one of the few existing Telemon sarcophagi was awarded only to the most celebrated warriors within the Adeptus Custodes. And until a worthy candidate found his end in battle, the Dreadnought stood silent and empty. So this wasn't a case of, oh well, this guy's kind of good. They would literally leave this thing empty for thousands of years until they found literally a worthy custodian combatant to pilot them. So even now in the 41st millennium, there's been 5 of these things created. So there's 5 of them sitting in the vaults of Terra, or defending the walls of Terra, I'm not sure. I have no idea how many of them are in active service today, or how many of them are stood empty, or like I said, where they're deployed. I'd love to know more about them. See them show up in a book or something, would be so cool. So even with them being this rare and this hard to construct, all that, despite this, the sheer power of an unleashed Telemon class dreadnought far outweighed the trials of its construction, for few could stand against the array of esoteric handcrafted weapons that graced its chassis, or the ferocious will and warrior skill of the master custodian interred within. And that's basically all she wrote. That's all we know really about Telmon Dreadnoughts. I don't even know if they've shown up anywhere in any novels or books about Custodes. They definitely didn't show up in the Siege of Terra series. Not a lot of Custodes did, to be honest with you. So I don't know. I would love to know more. So as it currently stands, you've seen I've gotten the gold ready. The model, like I said, got sprayed gold, then the Retributor armor shade, or the Reichland flesh shade over the top, and then we dry brush the whole thing with Liberator gold. And that gives you a beautiful burnished old style looking gold, which I think looks fantastic on the Custodes chassis. We then grabbed some Black Templar contrast and we filled in some of the kind of connector joints and softer bits, the piping underneath the chest. There's not a lot of it. There's not a lot of weak points on a Telemon Heavy Dreadnought, but there is some. And then we started to work up the red. So the previous Telmon Dreadnought I did, the red is where I really let myself down. So I really wanted to push this a little bit better. So I started by, of course, applying Blood Angel's red contrast onto those shoulder pads. Then I jumped up to Mephiston red and I started to kind of like heavy feather, if that makes any sense to people. I'm trying to get it a mostly kind of like a brighter red coat, but not be completely solid. I don't want it to just look like a really flat, dull panel, which I know can be a difficult thing to achieve. So I'm just going to go up through a bunch of different red tones, getting a little bit scratchier and scratchier, trying to give the eye something to look at and something to break it all up and hopefully look like it's nice and textured. I also took this opportunity while I was painting red to paint all of the tips of, they're not rockets, although they do look like little rockets. They're actually called, they're a bolt launcher, so they're like, I don't know, little bolt rounds. I have no idea, but they look cool. From here we jump up to Evil Sun's Scarlet, and this is where I start to get in with the, like I said, see I'm working with the fine point of the brush and getting a lot more scratchy with the coat. You can see the previous coat that I did is not a smooth red coat. It's got a little bit of that previous color showing through, and that's really what I'm looking for. I'm not even sure if I pulled off the red the way I wanted to. I'm happy with it, but maybe you guys watching home are looking at this thing being like, what the hell is this guy doing with the red? And if you feel that way, let me know. I would be curious to know what other people do. It's so easy to airbrush it up, tape off the gold, but I don't have access to that. I'm trying to make these tutorials as easy to follow as humanly possible. Therefore, I try and abstain from using an airbrush. Here's that scratchiness. You can start seeing it coming through a little bit more. And then we're going to go Wild Rider Red, and we're just going to go for a few small scratchy highlights across the armor. Hopefully, once again, creating that extra level of texture, and that's where we're going to leave it. I wish I had access to some transfers, but I have no Custodes transfers in my box of transfers. And I don't think it would match the kind of scratchy technique I'm going with anyway. There's not going to be any weathering or scratching or anything. I'm going to leave the red like this. I was tempted to maybe varnish it, but I've had some problems with varnishing it recently with a particular Necron video where I pretty much ruined the Necron with varnish. So I am trying to stay away from that a little bit. So you can see here what I mean by going in with that fine point and just adding a few kind of scratchy highlights. Okay, time to work up that base. So we obviously used the Firelands from AK for the base. We waited for that to dry, and then we threw the contrast, the orange contrast over that way for that to fully dry. After that, we dry brush Ryza Rust, and then we dry brush a bone color. With the crates and stuff that I put under it, I just hit them with a silver. I put Agrax Earthshade all over them. And when I'm dry brushing up the base, I'm just hitting them with all the same colors. So I'm dry brushing up the metal here with the Ryza Rust color. May seem kind of bizarre, but this is, an old wrecked piece of metal. Been sit on the Martian plains for I don't know how long. So it's allowed to be kind of buried and distraught and wrecked and stuff. And I just wanted to blend into the base more. I wanted something cool for the model to step up on, but I wanted to draw attention away from the awesome Dreadnought himself. You can see I do go quite heavy with the orange. I do like that color popping through. And then, like I said, I do jump up to a bone color. For this, I'm going for Screaming Skull. I didn't clean off the Ryza Rust from the base, so that kind of blends in a little bit. And then, yeah, you just hit it with a light drybrush. As you can see, this is much lighter than the previous coat. But I am going up over all those metallic bits as well, making it look like a really old, weathered piece of junk. I think it complements the color scheme quite well. I think the gold looks really nice in the Martian scheme. You guys may know that this is clearly my favorite basing scheme, and I use it across most projects. Kind of psychotic probably, but I just love it. And I shall continue adding it to projects until I become unhappy with it, which may never happen. And of course, the very nice, neat black rim onto the base as well, just to finish it off and make it look nice and polished. Now, we do have a few small parts left to paint across the Telemon himself. Not a lot. Funnily enough, like I said earlier, Custodes are one of the easiest armies, I feel, to paint. And if you do get a very simple and easy to follow guide like the ones on my channel, you can get an army done in very short order. Okay, we are going to throw some Talazar blue on the eye lenses and the gemstone that exists across the chassis of this guy. Now, it's actually one big gemstone. And then, of course, his eye lens as well, just to make them pop. They look really cool. Whilst I was, of course, going up with all those red tones, I did the same thing on those kind of the rocket tips for his pod that sits between his shoulder blades. So that's been fully painted along the way with this, and I'm going to be gluing that on in a moment. But the last step I'm going to do, just to kind of overemphasize the idea that this is thousands of years old, is we're going to add a little bit of Nilic Oxide. It's well maintained though, but I still think the ancient burnished gold look is what we want to. This is Oromite, which is the gold that creates Custodes weapons, armor, and equipment. It is like the rarest substance in the 41st millennium. An only very special thing. Primarch's armor is made of Oromite. The Emperor's armor is made of Oromite. You can only imagine the amount of Oromite it took to clad a Telemon Dreadnought. So literally, as you can see, not a lot of it at all, just on the bolts. Very small dips and divots where some of it might have settled. All I'm going to go for, I don't want to draw attention away from gold or red. But with that applied and the rockets glued into place between his shoulder blades, we have our second finished Telmon Dreadnought ready to deploy and be played in my game tomorrow. I'm very excited to field this army. I'm not sure my opponent is as excited as I am. He's a little bit worried about facing the Custodian Horde. But I think it's going to be a cool game. I will report to you guys over on Patreon and my Discord server what happens. Maybe throw up a few pictures if you're curious to know what happens. Here's a couple of still images of what this awesome brute looks like when he's finished. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more Custodian videos or more 40k videos, please do let me know in the comments below exactly what you would like to see, and I'll see if I'm able to help you guys out. Okay, it is now complete. Now, I already had a fully painted Telemon Dreadnought, and you may wonder why I need a second one, because I'm taking two. Two Telemon Dreadnoughts will stomp across the battlefield tomorrow. Hopefully they do well, and they are as awesome to play with as they are to build and paint. Very pleased to have these two guys ticked off my painting desk and ready to be used in games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a like, ask me any questions you want in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit that little subscribe button. Costs you nothing. It helps us out immensely. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of this video. Don't forget to check out things like channel membership and Patreon down below. And I'll see you in the next video.